What's up, you guys? It's me, B. Riley, and today we're actually going to do a video that is really got me stoked, man. I'm really excited about this. Stay tuned. All right, so here's the deal. I've been chasing a particular guitar for a very, very long time, and I finally managed to get my hands on it. And of course, me being who I am, the best part about it is the kind of shape that it's in, and the fact that it's not in good shape. But obviously, you can see by my face that I'm very excited about this thing. And today we are playing a 1966 or 1965 or 1967 Gibson SG Junior Special Conversion. Now, this guitar, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you right off the bat. We're going to take a close look at it, but buttress those feelings and brace yourselves, because there are going to be parts of this guitar that you're going to look at it, you're going to be like, what have you done? Why did you do this to yourself? And you want to know what? It's like we were saying in that the Strat video, the one from Japan. My favorite new guitars are guitars that need lots and lots of help. I just love taking these things apart, and this thing is just such a trip because it's not so simple as the usual fare that we've got on here. Usually we have, lawsuit guitars. We have Gibsons and stuff like that we've touched upon. But admittedly, when I was younger, not much younger than I am right now, I always just kind of considered myself the guy who could never really afford a Gibson. I was always a Fender guy. I don't know why. You just get into those habits, you get into those preferences, and they're hard to break out of. But I'd always loved the SG, and I'd always loved Les Pauls and things like that. I always wanted to have one, and I always loved the vintage stuff. It was just always really, really pretty. And the SGs of the mid 1960s, after they went from Les Paul to SG, as per Les Paul's endorsement deal running out, and the name not being applicable anymore. These are just so pretty to me. And the reason is because there are a lot of reissues that kind of get it right. But when you're looking at these, the bevels are very deeply cut into the top. And if it's still wearing its original finish, the sculpturing of an SG body is really very, very progressive for its time. I mean, this is kind of like, dare I say it, one of the first shredder guitars. And the reason is because it's just playable as hell. The bridge is high enough where you can get underneath it, where you can get some force behind the pick. You've got a multitude of tail pieces that are very, very easily swapped out and or modified, hopefully not too easily, because sometimes when people modify them, they don't come out too great. And it had excellent fret access. Now, obviously, the balance issue is a thing. And, the fact that the headstock brake was pretty common, and this is a headstock brake guitar. This was just one of those moments where Gibson really stepped out of their comfort zone. It's a very progressive body style. And you've got to remember that at the point in time in which they were, designing this devil with its horns and everything like that, it was like 1957, 1958. We are talking about a different period of time in America in which being scandalous was damn near criminal. They started off trying to make a guitar, and then they made a sculpture that you could play, which is pretty cool. Anyway, enough of the talking and enough of all that noise. This thing is something else. So let's do ourselves a favor and waste no time. Let's get this thing on the bench, and let's have a poke around and see if we can get some of the history going on this thing. First off, this guitar plays wonderfully. Just because a guitar has things wrong with it doesn't mean it necessarily plays bad. You guys know that, and gals. You know, there are just some guitars that need a bit of a push in one direction or the other. So obviously at first glance, everything looks okay, except, you know, as we start to dive into this thing, we start to see, you know, little things that are wrong with it. You know, the more that we stare at it, the more we realize that someone's had a hand in this over the years and someone's done a bit of custom work. So number one, right off the bat, this is the wrong bridge. This is a tune-o-matic. We should be seeing a lightning bar in here. Also, another thing is that no Junior would have come with a full-length lyre tailpiece. They would have come with just the partial or the short vibrola, that is the mechanism here, but without the bar stretching back to the tail end of the guitar. Obviously, it has a pickup that's sprung up out of the ground and grown without any type of regard for the originality of the guitar. What really fascinates me about this guitar is that it has been reinvented a multitude of times. The only problem is I feel like the concept is a bit muddled. There is what looks like a cast clip. You know, the type of thing that you would put, you know, on a wrap around your wrist, and it's glued down to the pickguard. Second glance, as far as SG specials, this pickup is not where it should be. And frankly, neither is this. If this were an SG special proper, this mounting screw would just be in between these two pickguard screws. But this one is actually directly down beneath it. Another thing is that you wouldn't have this gulf of space here, which currently is sitting in somewhere around, you know, 32 millimeters. And the pickup would be further up. Obviously, there's been some routing going on. We're going to get under there. It's probably going to be pretty not great. That this tailpiece is not where it should be. If you look at the angle of the string as it comes across the bridge, there looks to be a raised spot. It almost looks as though the break angle is giving you this optical illusion in which it looks like it's turning. That is not the case. These are actually turning about 8 degrees right as they cross the bridge. That when you loosen these strings, they pop out of the saddle and they sit on the right side right here. And if we actually zoom in really close, we can see on this high E saddle that there are kind of ramps on either side, which means that this bridge has been mounted to this body for probably about 30 or 40 years, and it's been mounted to the body for 30 or 40 years incorrectly. It is not aligned properly. We don't have a straight line going across the strings and then meeting it there. Instead, we have this interruption where the break angle and a curve are creating pressure points on the saddle here. So this guitar may have tuning problems if you use the vibrato at all. It's going to unnaturally catch on one side. You're going to start breaking strings. I can't tell you how many times I've seen these tail pieces come in, some from the factory, and they are not aligned properly, or they are not uniformly bolted down to the body. They're bolted down in different parts, different sections and things like that. Now don't make the mistake on this piece. Though it was designed so that it could be flipped down on a semi-hollow with a hard edge in which it would dodge the strap button, on this, that's not its intended design. So if it's on an SG, this should be up and flat and level, and you should actually even have a little bit more space than this. This should be able to have your hand right there without touching the actual tube of the mounting bracket. Now another thing that we can see here is we can see plugs on both sides from a stop tailpiece, but we know that this neck joint back here is actually closer to a 64/65. So what this tells me is that this guitar should never have had a stop tailpiece at all. More than likely what had happened is just before this tailpiece became part of this guitar's history, that someone had installed a stop tailpiece and then yanked it out and did a fill. Now, unfortunately, when they did the fill, it went a little low because as the lacquer kicked off, the solvent evaporated and it left a low spot. So we're gonna have to wet sand that. We won't be able to get it to perfect plate glass because we have a very thin finish here and we don't want to mess with the original finish too much, but we are gonna have to try to smooth that out just so that it stays clean and it looks a little bit more tidy. Here's for the scary business. Granted, on this bad boy, we have had a headstock break on this guitar. However, it was a very, very long time ago. I am looking at the paint on the headstock and I can tell you that whatever this repair was done with is not a paint that you can still get in a store. A little bit of damage right here to the hole for the ferrule, is a little piece missing. And it looks like they had bigger tuners on this for a long time. There's a ring of pressured paint around each tuner that you can kind of see. I know that this is going to piss off some of you ladies and gents, but I love this. This is my favorite part of this whole thing. So I want to make sure that you guys are zoomed in really good so you can kind of get a good look at what's going on there. John Monroe. This is another reason that I say that this is a kid's guitar. Because only a kid would start off by carving their initials in huge like this and then deciding to settle in on this little guy right here, John Monroe. Now, it's been many, many years. You can even feel on the scratches that they've been worn smooth just by handling these as well. So we'll wet sand them a little bit just to clean them up, but I'm not even going to remotely try to remove that name. You know, this is just the spirit of John Monroe, man. You know, he had this thing when he was a kid. He probably got it for Christmas or a birthday or something like that. And I can tell you, as much as I am doing the same thing right now standing here, he was probably over the moon with excitement about this guitar, because it's just, I mean, it's pretty hard to hang with, you know, a cherry red SG when it really looks like it's been through the ringer. And granted, when he got it, it hadn't, but by the time he was playing it, it sure as hell had his name carved into the back. So, you know, God bless him for being a little starter 12-year-old. And he probably got this right around 1966. Whoever John Monroe was. Anyway, let's take off the pickguard. Okay, so we got the pickguard off of this thing. And there's a lot going on over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and point camera downward, and we're going to go through this. And there's a lot to unpack, so stick with me here.